Hello, everyone. Chris Sawyer back again. The Varietal Show is on. Hanging out here at Sokol Blosser Winery. If you do not know this amazing place, it is in the Willamette Valley of Oregon and Dundee Hills in particular. I have my great friend with me, Susan Sokol Blosser, and we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. So thank you for being with us. Let's do this. Susan Sokol Blosser, my great dear friend. So great to be here with you. We are in this amazing part of Oregon up here, just outside of Portland. You just you point a little bit southwest and you kind of drive that way for about 45 minutes and you're here. It's so cool.
That's right.
And you are celebrating your 50-year anniversary of this amazing winery.
It is amazing to have survived for 50 years. Let's hear it for survival.
Yes. I'm here just celebrating all these great things. It's my first time outside of California since the pandemic hit, and I've been having some great times. But you were super high priority for me to get here to be with you.
Thank you, Chris.
I have known you for, I think we clocked it at a quarter century, which makes us seem really old.
We were teenagers.
We were teenagers. Right? The interesting thing too, you grew up in the Midwest, well actually the higher part of it, Wisconsin, and then you came to the West Coast to go to Stanford, and you fell in love with wine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I actually grew up with wine because my father, which was pretty unusual for the Midwest, had a wonderful wine cellar. His business took him to France every year and he became in love with French wine. So I grew up drinking that. That was my palate, was great Burgundies, Bordeaux's, German Mosels, and when Bill Blosser, my husband, suggested that we start a vineyard, well, I thought he was nuts, first of all. But it sounded like, wow, I don't have any better ideas. Yes. Let's do this.
Yep. And here you came up here because it was kind of expensive in California. It still is, you guys. Yes. And you came up here, you were one of the pioneers of this area. You've got the Campbells at Elk Cove, you got Ponzi's, you've got some of these older, David Adelsheim, and some of these older wineries that were here starting. You were all kind of starting up. There's David Lett, who had come and kind of, done the thing, and Dick Erath too. And so pioneers all came, they're kind of the late 60s, early 70s, and here you were. Why Dundee? Why these hills? If you guys could see out here where we're looking at the vineyards, a pretty red soil. It's very interesting. Why Dundee?
Well, first of all, I have to say that Bill and I were two liberal arts graduates.
Me too.
They told us we could do anything with a liberal arts education. I feel like I'm living proof that that's true. We wanted to start a vineyard without any business or agricultural training, and we wanted to grow Pinot Noir, which had never done well in the United States. So the fact that we're still here, that we're in business, that the second generation is running the show, ought to give inspiration to all budding entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And shows you that miracles happen. So when we decided that we wanted to have a vineyard, and we were looking at Oregon because that's where we were living at the time. Bill was teaching urban planning at Portland State. We would drive out in the country and there were no vineyards. What we were looking for was orchards that had survived, because they bloom in the early spring, and so that would be frost protection.
Right.
And we were very lucky to find an old orchard, an old prune orchard that was dilapidated, was no longer in business, and it was for sale. And we bought our original 18 acres.
And here she is.
In 1971, yes. Well, actually, we bought it at the end of 1970, but we started working it in 71.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute, and they do have an amazing selection of the Pinot Noirs, but we've also got the 50-year anniversary bottling here, which is super duper cool.
With the original label
With
shape.
the original label shape. I mean, like back in the old days, you know, things change as far as art and everything goes, and you got to stay with the cutting edge. And you and I got to know each other when I was at Wine X magazine back in the 90s. It was like kind of one of my first times to come up here and visit you and Domaine Drouin and David Adelsheim and Archery Summit, and way back in the 90s. And you know, I followed your brand, and you've done so much for me, because you really opened up my mind to some other things, and other than just Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Pinot Gris here. I think that one of the things about your program that was so interesting was the evolution wines. So you kind of came about founding this brand that was a blend of whites and then eventually reds too. And actually, we'll talk about this. This is almost the sparkling version of evolution.
Yes.
It's kind of into a topic that I really want to touch on, which is called Earth Month, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things that you really did with that brand and making these white wines that were so interesting is introducing me to Müller-Thurgau, a very interesting grape variety from Europe that no one really knows enough about, but they have it in Oregon. And actually, you helped, in my view, preserve a lot of the older Riesling vineyards that were here already, and they were in place, but no one, you know, like they were kind of going unloved. And you gave them love, and you made them part of this blend with Pinot Gris and Müller-Thurgau and these other grape varieties, Gewürztraminer, and you started sourcing fruit as the popularity of that grew. You started sourcing fruit from down in the south part of Oregon, and actually helping those people flourish and say, you know what, we could plant more if we really do it right. And so I feel like there's a lot of things about Sokol Blosser Winery that you should know out there, and you can go to the website and just investigate that more. But we're here today, one of the reasons I really wanted to get Susan here today to talk, besides about her great books and everything, which she's an amazing author, everyone, is just about Earth Month. And I consider you kind of Mother Earth of up here, and you've got the soul of an amazing person that really cares about Oregon and cares about your family and cares about this land and cares about the right things. And you've always struck me that way. And for Earth Month, I felt like you're going to be my first star, you know, for Earth Month, because you're Mother Earth. You know, we need more people like Susan Sokol Blosser in society, in my opinion, because she just puts her all into it, and she thinks very hard about the decisions that she makes. And I feel like you've done so much for us.
Well, thank you. You know, we always felt, Bill and I, this sense of place, that once we bought our vineyard and we started working it, and it has meant a lot to us to feel one with the grapes that we grow. And over the years, we've learned really what sustainability means. We are fully organic, both in the vineyard and in the winery, and have, you know, this sparkling wine is an homage to our bluebirds. We are part of the Prescott Western Bluebird Recovery Project, where we have bluebird boxes, and over the last 2 decades have fledged up to 50 little bluebirds a year. They're our insect patrol.
Yeah.
When we decided we needed a new barrel cellar to keep our barrels in good, humid, dark, quiet conditions for our Pinot Noir, we decided we would try to see how sustainably we could build it.
Right. And
we became the first winery building in the world to get LEED certification, which was very exciting.
So if you were to drive up here, which I hope you all do when you come to the the Dundee Hills of Willamette Valley, and you drive up to the winery, you can see on top of the winery is the tasting room is like a garden. I mean, it's
a living roof.
It's a living roof. It's so cool. And I remember you put this in about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. and you were so excited. And I got to see it back then, and it's kind of neat because it's actually kind of grown out a little bit, so it's even bigger and kind of more interesting. There's a lot of color up there, but it's natural. It's natural. In my house in Petaluma in Sonoma County, there used to be a veterinarian's clinic that had a hay roof, and people, oh God, you live near that hay roof place.
Wow.
I'm like, mm-hmm. So that's like, I mean, it's so cool, but that wasn't LEED certified. This is. So, it's just amazing. We tasted this a few minutes ago, and boy, it was delicious. It's so creamy, textured, but it's got a lot of good stuffing in there, and it kind of is like a little baby version of all these kinds of grape varieties going into it. But it's a delicious one, and this is just, the little bluebird on here is so sweet, but this wine isn't sweet. It's dry, and it's delicious.
Well said.
Thank you.
Said.
Boom. So we talk about another thing about, Oregon and, something that put it on the map. We're going to go into Pinot. Don't worry, everyone. Don't worry. But Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio is a white mutation of Pinot Noir. And yes, it is the same grape as Pinot Grigio. It's not, if you hear it called Pinot Gris, it means it's done in more of the Alsatian or French style, versus kind of the young, jovial kind of Pinot Grigio that you just have next to the pool. This is kind of a really amazing wine.
It's a serious wine.
It's a very serious wine. She takes things very serious, by the way. As you can see from these great books, Gracious and Ruthless right here. So that's a good one to say that she might be serious sometimes and need to be. But I felt like this was just amazing wine. We debated if we were going to talk about Chardonnay, which they make an extremely good Chardonnay too. It tastes like Meursault if you guys like French wine. But there's just something about this, because this became the beacon for what white wines were in Oregon. While you were preserving the Riesling, and all the cool cats started coming in and started buying the Riesling, or starting leases with these amazing old vine Riesling vineyards and becoming very successful with them. But Pinot Gris is kind of what put white wines on the map for Oregon on a big scale.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your love for Pinot Gris.
What I think is really special about what we can do with Pinot Gris in Oregon is that you have Pinot Grigio, which is light and fruity and crisp and nice next to the pool. And you have the Alsatian Pinot Gris, which is much weightier and big mouthfeel. We're right in the middle. We have some of that crispness, but we also have a little mouthfeel and a creaminess. Yeah. So you can have it all with Sokol Blosser Pinot Gris.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a great flavor profile. And we decided if we were going to taste one today, because it is midday about right now, we'd have some Pinot Gris, because that's the right thing to do. What do you say?
Cheers.
Cha-ching. This is a great one. How many cases of this do you think you produce?
I don't know that.
Okay. Allison and Alex.
I'm on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids are running the winery.
They
could
would know.
tell you in a minute.
They would know. But here we have a great Oregon wine press. This is a new issue right here. Adelsheim and Sokol Blosser, really create a century of wines. And it's really true. They're both celebrating their 50-year anniversary this year, and this is an amazing thing. David Adelsheim right there in the middle. There's Susan. She's right next to me too, over here. And there's been a lot of stuff that's happened here. Isn't it crazy for you sitting up on this hill and looking down and going, that wasn't there, that wasn't there. Oh yeah, there's Archery Summit up there, and there's Domaine Drouin right up above you, and but they weren't here when we started.
They weren't here. Those were wheat fields. We have pictures of that, where it was wheat fields and invasive blackberries.
Yep.
And now it's vineyards as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Pinot Noir helped launch this area, Willamette Valley and Dundee Hills, into a new world part of the map. I mean, it really is. Like, there is so much French investment here now. that was not here. There are wine lovers from around the world that come and visit here. There are wineries that were definitely not here. And it's just been something of, I mean, the accomplishments are amazing that you've done.
You know, there's over 800 wineries in Oregon now. Isn't that amazing? I mean, when we started, there was a handful. The whole wine industry fit in our living room, and that's how we'd meet. We'd get together and we'd say, oh, so-and-so is selling their steaks. For example, the pole bean growers were switching to bush beans, and they sold off all their steaks and wire right at the point when our vineyards needed steaks and wire. So we bought all the used steaks and the used wire, and we shared that information.
So it was your little version of the MacGyver thing, where you were resourceful. You had to just do it. And I love that story. And you guys used to meet down in Tigard, the Tigard fire station. Her stories that she's told me, and everyone says the same exact thing. So it's the Campbells at Elk Cove and David Avelsheim and everyone. Oh yeah, then we used to meet at Tigard fire station, and everyone tells a very similar story. I mean, I was so surprised when everyone, I didn't tell everyone I'm going to see you or I'm going to see him when I wrote this, original set of stories back in. That was in 2013 because you're going to be your anniversary of the appellation, but everyone was totally saying the same exact things, and it was so crazy how you guys worked together as a team. You weren't in the same exact area. Some of you were kind of close to each other, but you represented what was become these sub-appellations of Willamette Valley too, and that's just what's amazing about it. And you're still here, and so many other people have come, and it's just grown to be something that it wasn't when you started.
Yes, and one of the things that has been really special about the Oregon wine industry is how we've helped each other, how collaborative we are. And sometimes I laugh and I think, well, that's because we were liberal arts graduates. We knew how to work together. If we'd been business majors, we would have been much more competitive.
Yes.
And not wanting anyone to have the information that we had. But we shared everything, and we literally had to write the book on how to grow grapes in Oregon because conditions here are so different than either California or Burgundy.
You did write the book. It's called The Vineyard Years. Boom, done. Just another great book. I mean, you really have written a number of books. And Allison, your daughter, who's now the CEO,
yes.
She's a big deal, of the winery. I mean, this is the family life. This is the memoirs, and it's the recipes, and it's the recipes for success, too, in the wine industry, which is hard. Believe me, being from Sonoma County, there's been a lot of wineries that have come and gone.
Well, the recipe for success is gracious and ruthless. How it played out is in the vineyard years.
Exactly, exactly.
So one thing I have to say, which has happened over the 50 years, is that Bill and I never talked to our kids as they were growing up about coming into the business. We thought, wow, it was such a hard life. It was 7 days a week. I mean, this is what we did. Yeah. We thought they could have a life if they weren't in the wine industry. Each one of them, although they did grow up in the vineyards, I mean, they grew up working in the vineyard and the winery, and each one of them circled back. And two of them are now full-time. They're running the business, for Pete's sake. I turned over the presidency in 2008, January 2nd, 2008.
She'll never forget that.
11:30 in the morning. It was really hard. Let me just say, it was really hard to give up control.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am so proud that not only did they want to come back into the business, but that they're doing a great job.
They really are.
That they're competent.
Yeah.
We did go through a 3-year transition to, mentor them. because as soon as they came into the business, I knew that they were going to want to take over.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Alex is co-president winemaker,
Yep.
and Allison is co-president CEO.
Amazing.
And I'm in awe of them.
I am in awe of them too, knowing Alex first and then getting to know Allison and watching their progression too from a standpoint of a sommelier and wine writer who's known, the family for, quarter century. It's been really amazing watching that transition and really how it happened. And I'm super proud of you guys, and I'm super proud of being here and just tasting these great wines. I mean, this is what why Oregon makes me feel super happy every time that I'm here. I just it's people like Susan Sokol Blosser and the family that are just, they like people. I mean, what's wrong with this? There is nothing wrong with it. They like nature. There's nothing wrong with that. That's super cool. And I always feel that way when I come here. It's almost like the smile was just implanted on me because I can't help but smiling when I'm around you guys and having a good time. And when we're talking about great Pinot Noir, hello. So Pinot Noir, what the heck's happened with that? That's gone a little ways, hasn't it now? Pinot Noir, we will not use Sideways the movie as being the reason for success up here. We'll talk about some other things. First of all, I give David Alsheim, once again, our great friend David Alsheim here in the middle. One of the things that he did about this area, you guys love this Dundee Hills, and this is going to be it. This is the end-all, be-all. And he said, yes, but no. The problem is that we are not thinking on a bigger scale. Look at the maps of Burgundy, and Burgundy is this big, and then there's these little subzones inside of it. We have to think big and then go small and make these individual sub-appellations what they are. And I think today, and especially during my trip here in 2021, this early part of 2021, these appellations are so important now. They've gone to a different level, and their flavors are very different. What do you think it sets Dundee Hills Pinot Noir apart from others?
Well, that's a really good question. I'd be interested in what you found.
I'll give you a few bits. But first of all, I mean, it comes with the soils, and I think that you guys laid the foundations here. You did not have these Dijon clones that we talk about. Dijon clones are these ones that you find that have 3 digits. So it's the 115, 667, 777, 828, or faux 828. Let's not go there. But these kinds of things were not here yet. And this is something that you and the Adelsheims and the Ponzis and everyone worked to get those over from France. One of the reasons for that is that the season is a little bit shorter for them. Early ripening. And that's the reason. It gets cold here and it rains. This is Oregon, you guys. It's not California where, oh yeah, it's so sunny. It can rain here in basically September, and it can rain hard sometimes. And it can get hot during the summer, but it just changes completely, and it changes fast. So you had things like Pommard, which is the old UC Davis clone, and then you also had a very special one called 2A, which is Wädenswil. It's a Swiss clone of all things. And that's really interesting that's kind of two plantings that really kind of set you on terms of success, but it was total risk at the time. No one knew anything about if these would work or not. Pretty amazing.
Well, we were so lucky because those clones in subsequent tastings have come out at the top. The other decision we made, which had huge consequences, is not to plant on rootstock.
Right.
And the issue was phylloxera, which of course had decimated the French vineyards and California as well. So we decided to plant on vine's own roots, not to use rootstock, thinking that eventually phylloxera would find us, but that in the meantime, we didn't have any rootstock that we felt was appropriate for Oregon. There was not much available. And we eventually did get phylloxera in the 1990s. I had to tear out a lot of vineyard. It was pretty sad to see our original vines go. But by that time, we had alternative rootstocks that were perfect for Oregon. So I look back and I think we made the right decision in that case.
Yeah, I think so too. I love these style. You know, I've been over to Sokol Blosser many times here on Sokol Blosser, but you know, I've been over at Stoller too this week, and you know, there's something very similar about some things about these flavor profiles, and it has this red fruit component, but there's this kind of natural spice and this kind of minerality that kind of goes along with iron-rich soils that we find.
There's an earthiness.
There's an earthiness. It's a natural earthiness.
Yes. It's a nice earthiness, that sometimes a touch of mushroom, sometimes a touch of tobacco, blackberry, and I like it when it's subtle.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't just, you know, I like to say Pinot Noir, when it's done well, is not going to knock your socks off.
Right.
It's going to sneak up on you, seduce you, and slip your socks off.
Ooh, did you hear that, you guys? Amazing. Oh, this woman. You know, here we are, the 50-year anniversary. Quite an accomplishment. Quite an accomplishment where Willamette Valley's gone, where Dundee Hills has gone, where Sokol Blosser has gone, and where we have gone talking about this area up here and why everyone needs to come and visit Sokol Blosser. That's a no-brainer for me.
Yes, please. Yes. Come see us.
And come and visit the family, and come and visit these great people. And you know, I'll give a shout out to Lee Medina too, because he's always my go-to guy whenever I'm coming up here. He's the head salesman for most of America, and he's just a great guy that I've known. Every time I come here, I call him. He's one of my great buds. But you know, it's just it's an amazing accomplishment. 50 years here for you guys.
It is amazing. When I stop and think about it, I think 50 years. How did that happen?
I know, it's crazy, and the success of this area has just blown me away. And I'm so happy to be up here. I'm so happy to visit, and I'm so happy to celebrate with you.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Cheers, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Varietal Show. Obviously, we talked about some fabulous varietals here. You can find these guys, Sokol Blosser, on the website. It's really easy to find, and it's really easy to come up here. Fly into Portland, drive your car, whatever you do, come and visit these guys. Have some fun. Remember, they care about you just like they care about this property. Cheers.